Tonight in New York City, former President Trump takes the stand in the $250 million fraud trial against him. The judge asking Trump's lawyers to control their client. And Israel's war with Hamas. Tonight, my exclusive interview with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The war, the hostages, and will there be a humanitarian pause? First tonight in that New York City courtroom, former President Trump taking the stand himself. The testimony quickly growing heated. Trump combative with the judge declaring this is not a political rally. And what Trump acknowledged on the stand. Aaron Katersky live outside the courthouse tonight. The ABC News exclusive, my interview with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, just moments after his phone call today with President Biden. Where does this war stand? What about the hostages? Does Israel know where they are? The health ministry in Gaza, run by Hamas, now saying more than 10,000 Palestinian civilians have been killed. The Biden administration pushing for a humanitarian pause. So will there be one? How the prime minister answers that question. And tonight, Netanyahu making news when I ask, what does victory look like? And who governs Gaza after this conflict? My exclusive interview right here tonight. The other news, the verdict in the death of Elijah McClain, officers placing him in a chokehold while he was walking home, EMTs giving him ketamine. Tonight, the officer who placed him in that hold and the verdict just in. Tonight, the mass shooting at that 4th of July parade, the father of the 19-year-old behind the attack in a Chicago suburb, now pleading guilty for helping his son get the gun. Here in New York, police rushing to rescue a man who fell onto the subway tracks with a train approaching. 2 recalls at the dinner hour tonight, 30,000 pounds of chicken nuggets because of possible pieces of metal, and children's applesauce. We have news on Bruce Springsteen's health tonight, what a member of the E Street Band has now revealed. And Dolly Parton is here tonight talking about the honor she never saw coming. Her interview with Robin Roberts.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to start another week with all of you at home. We have 2 major stories as we come on the air tonight. My exclusive interview with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Israel's war, the hostages, will there be a humanitarian pause in Gaza? But we do begin tonight with the scene playing out in a New York City courtroom today. Former President Trump taking the stand in the $250 million civil fraud trial against him. The first former president ever to testify in his own defense, to take the stand himself. And it grew heated. Trump taking on the judge telling Trump's lawyers to control their client. The former president was seated between his lawyers at the defense table, then on the stand just a few feet from the judge, lashing out at him, accusing the judge of being unfair. Judge Arthur Engoron telling Trump this is not a political rally, telling Trump to answer the questions, threatening to eject him from the court. Leaving the courtroom for a break, but still under oath, the former president gesturing to reporters that his lips were sealed. There is no jury in this case. The judge will decide Trump's fate, the future of some of Trump's landmark properties. Even so, taking on that judge was clearly the strategy today. And Trump did concede he knew what was in the financial statements at the heart of this case. ABC senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky leading us off tonight outside court.
Donald Trump arriving at court today to testify in his civil fraud trial, spoiling for a fight.
This is really election interference. That's all it is. This trial is ridiculous.
New York's Attorney General unfazed.
I am certain that he will engage in name-calling and taunts and race baiting and call this a witch hunt. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters are the facts and the numbers. And numbers, my friends, don't lie.
It was tense from the start, sitting right next to Judge Arthur Engoron, Trump complaining he called me a fraud and he didn't know anything about me. The judge admonishing the former president, please just answer the question, no speeches. Trump did not comply. Calm but combative while hunched in the witness chair, Trump at one point grumbling, I'm sure the judge will rule against me because he always rules against me. Judge Engoron exasperated, calling Trump's answers non-responsive and repetitive, at one point yelling to Trump's attorney, can you control your client? This is not a political rally. This is a courtroom. I beseech you to control him. If you can't, I will, and threatening to boot Trump from court. Trump's response, this is a very unfair trial. I hope the public is watching. In a break, but still under oath, he gestured his lips were sealed.
Trump, how's it going in there?
The judge has already determined Trump fraudulently overvalued his properties and inflated his net worth to get better deals on bank loans and insurance. On the witness stand, Trump conceded he knew what was in his financial statements, acknowledging, "I would look at them, I would see them, and I would maybe on occasion have some suggestions." But he largely deflected blame to deputies and accountants, saying, "I have people, I pay them a lot of money, they're accountants, I assume they keep good records." Still, he claims when you factor in the Trump brand, he's worth a lot more than what it says on paper, insisting the numbers of my net worth are far greater than the numbers reflected on the financial statements. Therefore, you have no case.
So let's bring in Aaron Katersky live outside court tonight. Aaron, as I mentioned off the top of the broadcast tonight, there's no jury in this trial, something Trump's defense team was aware of obviously early on. The judge will rule in this case. He's already decided Donald Trump is liable for fraud here. So what was behind the strategy of taking on the judge today?
It was extraordinary, David, to see a defendant on a witness stand attack a judge so blatantly, Trump pointedly calling Judge Engoron a disgrace and smirking or rolling his eyes whenever he would overrule an objection from the defense. But Trump's intended audience seemed to be far from this courtroom as he tries to use this legal case to his political advantage. David?
Aaron Katersky leading us off tonight outside Lower Manhattan, the court there. Aaron, thank you. We turn now to the ABC News exclusive tonight, my interview with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, just moments after his phone call today with President Biden. Tonight, Israel's war with Hamas. Where does this war stand 1 month after the Hamas terror attack? The Biden administration pushing for a humanitarian pause. So will there be one? How the Prime Minister answered that question. The Israeli military tonight saying its troops have now completely surrounded Gaza City, describing the fighting as, quote, close quarters, urban warfare, face-to-face battles. And the staggering toll, the health ministry in Gaza run by Hamas now claiming more than 10,000 Palestinian civilians have been killed. I asked the Prime Minister about those civilian casualties. Will there be a pause here for humanitarian aid, as the Biden administration is now pushing for? Also tonight, what about the hostages, including Americans? Do they know where they are? And tonight, Netanyahu making news when I ask, what does victory look like? Who governs Gaza after this conflict? My interview with the Israeli Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for joining us here. I know you spoke with President Biden just a short time ago. President Biden has repeatedly said that Israel has every right to defend itself, has an obligation to defend its people. We also know what the administration is now saying, calling for a humanitarian pause to help get aid into Gaza and to help minimize the deaths of Palestinian civilians. Will there be a pause?
First of all, let me say that I deeply appreciate, as do the entire people of Israel, President Biden's and the American government and the American people's support for Israel with great moral clarity. I think there's the question of a ceasefire. The president himself has said that a ceasefire would be a surrender to Hamas. It would be a victory for Hamas, and you would no more have it than you would have a ceasefire after the al-Qaeda bombings of the World Trade Center.
I know the Biden administration has also said now is not the time for a ceasefire. What they're proposing is a humanitarian pause. There will be no pause?
Well, there will be no ceasefire, general ceasefire in Gaza without the release of our hostages. As far as tactical little pauses, an hour here, an hour there, we've had them before. I suppose we'll check the circumstances in order to enable goods, humanitarian goods to come in, or our hostages, individual hostages to leave. But I don't think there's going to be a general ceasefire. It's not that I don't think. I think it will hamper the war effort. It'll hamper our effort to get our hostages out, because the only thing that works on these criminals in Hamas is the military pressure that we're exerting.
If Hamas agrees to release the hostages, then there would be a pause.
Well, there'd be a ceasefire for that purpose. And we're waiting for that to happen. It hasn't happened so far.
Do you know where the hostages are? Do you know where the Americans are?
We have some intelligence. I'm not sure it's wise to share it here with Hamas.
I know you said you're doing everything you can to minimize civilian casualties. Obviously, the world saw the horror in Israel, the 1,400 brutally killed in that terror attack. We were on the ground for several days, as you know. But the world has now also seen the toll in Gaza. The health ministry run by Hamas now says 10,000 Palestinian civilians have been killed, 4,000 of them children. I'm not asking about Hamas here. I'm asking about the 10,000 civilians killed. Are you concerned about the number of civilians that we've seen lost, caught in the middle of this conflict?
I think every civilian loss is a tragedy. Every civilian life lost is a tragedy. We're fighting an enemy that is particularly brutal. They're using their civilians as human shields. And while we're asking the Palestinian civilian population to leave the war zone, they're preventing them at gunpoint. They're using them as human shields.
I know you have told Palestinian civilians to move to the south. We know that there have been strikes in the south as well. We should just point that out. When you talk about the tactics used by Hamas, the world is aware of those tactics. Are you taking that into account? Because when you start to see numbers that are difficult to wrap your head around, 10,000 Palestinian civilians, is there a more targeted approach in going after Hamas being explored here to try to minimize the number of Palestinian civilians who are not Hamas, who are not militants, who've lost their lives here?
The answer is yes. First of all, I wouldn't take those numbers at face value. I think we have to check them, and there are quite a few, several thousand Palestinian combatants there. That is Hamas terrorists that are incorporated in those numbers. It's a very tough enemy, but we can't let them have immunity. If we let them have immunity, David, then barbarians win.
You have refused any temporary pause that doesn't include the return of hostages. You mentioned that right here with me again today. I'm curious what you would say to the families of those hostages who believe that this mounting civilian death toll in Gaza, now at 10,000, is putting their own loved ones, these hostages, at greater risk.
Well, we're taking that into consideration, believe me. There's no one who wants to get our hostages back more than us. I think that it's important to understand that there is no way to defeat terrorists embedded in a civilian population without going as targeted a way as you can against the terrorists. But there will be, unfortunately, these civilian casualties. We'll do, again and again, I say it, we'll do everything in our power to reduce that.
You spoke with President Biden just before you came on the air here to talk with me. Does he agree with you on this, no pause and less hostages, or is this a disagreement with President Biden?
We agree on many things. I've known President Biden. I've known Joe Biden for 40 years. He's a great supporter of Israel, and he's a great friend. It's trying times for both of us and for the people of Israel and our friends. We understand that, but we have to stand together, and I think we stand together.
But there is daylight here on this notion of a humanitarian pause. You don't agree with the Biden administration on that?
We agree that we have to provide humanitarian assistance. We're doing it and coordinating it with our American friends and with President Biden. We'll do whatever we can. We don't want to give Hamas the opportunity to endanger our soldiers. We saw that until we started the ground action, there was no pressure on them to release hostages. What we see is the minute we started the ground action, there is pressure.
I know Israel prides itself on its intelligence capabilities. We now know the Hamas attack had been planned for months. We saw the training videos. Of course, we saw the thousands of Hamas terrorists swarming into Israel. How did your government miss this?
It's a very good question, because the first task of government is to protect the people, and clearly we didn't live up to that. We had a big setback.
As Prime Minister, do you personally bear any responsibility here?
I've said that there are going to be very tough questions that are going to be asked, and I'm going to be among the first to answer them. We're not going to evade that. The responsibility of a government is to protect the people, and clearly that responsibility wasn't met.
But you know what I'm asking here, because so many Israeli officials, including the defense minister, the military intelligence chief, the military chief of staff, they've all taken some responsibility for Israel being caught off guard. They didn't say we have to wait for an investigation here. Do you believe that you should take any responsibility?
Of course. That's not a question. It's going to be resolved after the war. I think there'll be time to allocate that.
President Biden has said that it would be a mistake for Israel to occupy Gaza. Who should govern Gaza when this is over?
Those who don't want to continue the way of Hamas. It certainly is not. I think Israel will, for an indefinite period, will have the overall security responsibility, because we've seen what happens when we don't have it. When we don't have that security responsibility, what we have is the eruption of Hamas terror on a scale that we couldn't imagine.
Do you have a warning to Iran, to Hezbollah?
I think they've understood that if they enter the war in a significant way, the response will be very powerful. And I hope they don't make that mistake.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for taking the time for us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
We will have more of my interview with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later tonight on Nightline, and you heard him warn Iran and Hezbollah there. Tonight, the Pentagon revealing a U.S. nuclear-powered submarine has arrived in the Middle East. They put out this image of the vessel in the Suez Canal. A U.S. sub in those waters isn't unusual, but announcing it is, of course, meant as a message of deterrence tonight. We turn now to the other news this Monday evening, the verdict in the death of Elijah McClain, officers stopping him as he walked home from a convenience store, one putting him in a chokehold, EMTs giving him ketamine. Tonight, the verdict just in for the officer who placed him in that hold. And here's Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, a Colorado police officer has been acquitted in the killing of Elijah McClain, a young man whose death shocked the nation.
The foreperson reads, "We, the jury, find the defendant, Nathan Woodyard, not guilty of manslaughter, reckless, and the lesser included offense of criminally negligent homicide."
Nathan Woodyard placed McClain in a neck hold, which has since been banned. But his defense team arguing McClain was alive when Woodyard released him and that it was a fatal dose of ketamine that contributed to McClain's death. Woodyard's acquittal comes just weeks after another officer was acquitted in McClain's death while yet another was convicted. It was August 2019, and McClain, a massage therapist, was walking home after buying iced tea from a convenience store.
Stop right there.
Police confronting McClain after receiving a report of a suspicious person wearing a ski mask. But what they didn't know, according to Elijah's family, is that he wore a ski mask because he was anemic and often cold. Police grabbed McClain within 7 seconds. The officers apply a chokehold.
I'm so sorry. You reached for your gun, dude. I have no gun. That's where I tried fraud. I don't do that stuff.
Paramedics later inject McClain with that powerful drug. He was declared brain dead days later and died in the hospital. David McClain's mother was in the courtroom today, apparently wiping tears from her eyes. David?
Pierre Thomas in Washington. Pierre, thank you. We turn now to the mass shooting at that 4th of July parade in a Chicago suburb. Tonight, the father of the alleged shooter, who was 19 at the time, that father now has pleaded guilty to 7 misdemeanors for helping his son get the permit for that gun. Robert Crimo Jr. sponsored his underage son's application for a license, even after prosecutors claim the father knew the teen had expressed suicidal and violent thoughts. The father will now serve 60 days in jail. His son, Robert Crimo III, is awaiting trial. When we come back here tonight, the remarkable images, the rescue on the subway in New York, a passenger falling onto the tracks as the train was coming. Also, news on Bruce Springsteen's health tonight, and Dolly Parton is here. 2 New York City police officers rescued a man on the subway tracks in Queens. The officers saw him fall from the platform at the 90th Street and Roosevelt Avenue station. One of the officers jumping onto the tracks while the 7 train was approaching. The man on the tracks is in stable condition tonight. Tyson Foods recalling nearly 30,000 pounds of chicken nuggets after receiving complaints of customers finding metal pieces in 29-ounce packages of dinosaur-shaped nuggets. The packages with a best by date of September 4th, 2024. A children's applesauce recall now expanding to other brands because pouches may contain elevated levels of lead. Schnucks and Wise Markets now recalling certain cinnamon applesauce fruit pouches. The FDA receiving reports of illnesses in several states. More on both recalls tonight on our website. When we come back here, news on Bruce Springsteen's health tonight and Dolly Parton on the unexpected honor. To the index in Bruce Springsteen's battle with peptic ulcer disease, Stephen Van Sant telling USA Today that they had no idea how much pain the boss was in as they kept going with at least 5 more shows. He says Springsteen, by the way, is all good now. That was good news. When we come back, Dolly Parton on the honor she was never expecting. Finally tonight, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducting its newest members, but there is one member still so appreciative of the honor last year. Dolly Parton with Robin Roberts tonight.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They reach out to you and you're like, oh no, thank you, but no thank you. And you even said that you're not worthy. Dolly Parton not worthy?
You know me in controversy. I don't want no pardon, no, nothing. I'm not a rebel without a cause, you know. And I know a lot of the rock artists that have never been put in the Hall of Fame that really should be. And like, I'd spent my life in country music, and I'm happy to accept anything because I work hard in that world. I did not want to take any votes away from any of the rock people that spend their life doing that. And then they kept saying, no, we want you. Jolene, Jolene, Jolene.
Dolly accepting that honor.
If I'm going to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I'm going to have to earn it.
telling Robin it inspired her to write her first ever rock and roll album.
Was there any trepidation about taking on this genre, something different?
You know, I would have if I'd have been younger. But at my age, I ain't afraid of much anymore.
Robin's special, Dolly Parton, From Rhinestones to Rock and Roll, tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern on ABC. We love Dolly. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.